Welcome back to Party Chat. I'm Johnny,
And I'm Cyberine.
and today we're doing something a little different. Over the last few weeks, we've covered a variety of different topics all across gaming. And with the Game Awards having come and gone, we decided what better way to end the show than to put out our favorite games of all time.
Insane, right? We really made it through a long journey, everyone. 10 whole episodes throughout a college semester. Yeesh. But luckily, it's wrapped and revolved around us just talking about what we love, and that is video games. And it's almost time for Christmas, so, have a happy holiday, everyone. Lead the way, Johnny.
All right, so
What we doing, man?
So much like Party Chat in some ways, Game Awards is a celebration of gaming.
It's that you don't have to hail from a giant studio to make your mark in gaming.
So what we want to do is to crown our own personal games of all time. So the way we're going to do this is Sabrina and I have our own personal criteria on what makes a game great. So what we're going to do, we're each going to explain our criteria. We're going to explain our 5 nominees a tiny bit, and then crown our award for favorite game of all time, and give a little reasoning, of course, as to why we picked it.
Sounds good to me, man. How about I start off? What you thought I was
Start us off, Cybreen.
So, what makes a game fun or art or important? What really makes the best of the best games? I'd say after seeing so many different walks of life, so many different communities of gamers, so many different outlooks on just this hobby that we all have and love. We can see from the arguments that are had, clearly we all aren't thinking the same. But the thing that makes a great game for me is its ability to answer whatever the person wants out of a game in the moment. Like, it has to offer the best version of that in the moment. And I feel like there's so many different games that do that in different ways for, their respective communities.
I think that's well said. I think that's a very good criteria to base it off of. So for my personal criteria, I have it set up into 4 bullet points. I have a very organized mind, so I have to articulate it like this. So the 1 point being an appealing art style that fits the story and the setting. Obviously, a game can have a variety of different looks. We've seen it all the time, but one that really does a good job at complementing what the overall story and gameplay is like. And then the second point is a soundtrack that complements the setting and the tone. Cybreen, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. A soundtrack, pretty important for a video game. Wouldn't you say so?
Essential, my friend.
Exactly. So, but this can't just be great music. It has to really complement the moments, really set the stage of the setting, the tone. It has to do all of that perfectly to really invest the player into what they're about to experience. Then we got gameplay that works with the player, not against. I'm sure this is pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure we've all had those games where it feels like you are actively fighting the game in order to proceed. And sometimes that's not what you want. Skyrim is a good one. And then finally, a narrative that values the player's time while also drawing them in as well. There's some games out there, you know them, I won't name them, that really like to just fill up hours, And I don't think, maybe you do, Sabrina. I don't like wasting time in a game. I want to see this story through and waste no time about it.
Well, I'm not that way. I understand you being that way. I'm a very much, like to sit and 100%, try to 100% everything before I get to the end. Like, I'll go every way possible.
Right.
In line, try to look for that's something that my dad instilled into me. It's like, yeah, if you're not, I think he said something like, if you're not really playing the game for 100%, what you buy it for.
And you know what, Sabrina? I think that does a great job at showing how gaming is. What I see in a game is not what you're going to see in a game. And that's why it's great that we have our own personal list.
But we do share a hate for Valorant the same, right?
We do share hate for Valorant. You might not know that based off, what was it now? 2 weeks ago? Where we did a whole episode on it. Believe it
We're
or not,
breaking the fourth wall this time, you guys. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. So, without further ado, why don't we get into our nominees for what we want to crown our favorite of all time?
Indeed.
Would you like me to start or you?
Either way, because mine is very, very, very unfair.
Okay. So, my nominees for greatest game of all time, personally, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Undertale, Kingdom Hearts 2, Persona 5, and Beyond Good and Evil. Now, these are all great games in my opinion. However, one of them is going to be crowned the number one. But I will say, up at the top, these games, I highly recommend each and every one of them because they all excel at what they do. So now, Cybrine, please.
My top 5 are Resident Evil 4, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Borderlands 2, Red Dead Redemption 1, and finally, of course, Kingdom Hearts 1. No, not 1. Kingdom Hearts 2.
Based off the Keyblade, I wonder what won. So do you want to start us off on our trip here of crowning?
Oh, I got distracted doing cool Keyblade things. But I'll do that.
All right. Tell us your number one, Supreme.
Number 1 of all time, of course, is Kingdom Hearts 2. Because I'm a very biased person, and I think about things very biasedly. So my mind really thinks about Kingdom Hearts, while everything else may be a little bit more fair to other things. But there is no argument that can be formed. There is nothing that can be dissected. There's no point that can be made to ever make me think that Kingdom Hearts isn't the greatest piece of gaming history and art and music and everything, just ever. Just, like there's nothing, it's a perfect game. There's nothing wrong with it. 110% on Rotten Tomatoes in my mind, I'm sorry that, like I'm that combative about it, but yeah, no, like I don't care. Kingdom is the greatest thing ever.
Now, I do want to bring this up. You shared before in a previous recording that's just gonna go off into the void. Doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
But you shared a story with me that I think really excels what your criteria is when in our last recording about Kingdom Hearts 2. Would you like to repeat that?
Well, we could do a little cutaway here. Honestly, I find that John.
We could. Okay. Video editing.
All right.
Later, in the void.
Find in this game is just so heartwarming and beautiful about friendship and the trials of it and how far we're willing to go to save everyone that we love. And that always just resonated with me, like all the way through the convoluted Disney characters and Final Fantasy hairstyles.
Mm-hmm.
Very just, and the art and the aesthetic, I know Favel talks much about, what makes something, that's art. And I feel like the fact that you get everything from this game, from Japanese culture to, manga, anime, artistic visuals, just the approach to JRPGs, like everything about Kingdom Hearts in just such a way that melded it to make it palatable for kids, for Americans, for everyone, honestly.
But yeah, I really agree with what he says, and it really fits the criteria that he said. It doesn't really pertain to me personally because it's on my list. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really do what it did for Supreme, which if we'd like to transition over, my personal list, my personal number one is The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. So, yeah, put the clap, Raymond, right here. Put the clapping noises. So, why did Wind Waker win out of my nominees? Well, let's go back to my criteria. The art style does a great job of modernizing itself in the sense of if you played it today, it's not going to look dated to you. It's going to look as if this is a game that you're playing that released today. Obviously, there's some jagged edges. It happens. But in a sense, it really it really did a good job of aging with the rest of gaming, especially in a world where we're so focused on realism graphics. It's really set itself right now. And then the soundtrack. If you've ever played a Zelda game, you know the soundtracks are most of the time really, really good. And this is no exception. The soundtrack does a great job of setting the mood for what you're about to do, from the upbeatness that you start off in the beginning of the game all the way to that final battle with Ganon. Each moment is articulated with the music that's playing. And gameplay wise, works just as well on the Wii U as it did on the GameCube. It's probably my favorite combat in Zelda because of how responsive it is and how simple it is. The item management is pretty easy, in my opinion. And then finally, a narrative that values the player's time. This is a mixed one because for the first 80% of the game, it's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. Like, it's all good. But then you reach the Triforce quest. Now, Sabrina, I know you haven't really played Wind Waker, so you don't know what I'm talking about. But how does sailing across the ocean for about 3 hours trying to rebuild pieces of the Triforce sound to you?
It sounds like Sea of Thieves.
It does sound like Sea of Thieves. It does sound like Sea of Thieves. But it's not really... The pace of Wind Waker grinds to a halt at that quest. So, but Miyamoto came out a little while later and said that, oh no, it wasn't Miyamoto. Anuma, I think, said it. Eiji Anuma said that the reason for that Triforce quest is because they were crunched for time and there was supposed to be a dungeon that supplemented that. So there's always going to be limitations with these games. There's no way around it. But aside from that, the narrative does a great job at drawing you in. From the moment the game starts, you're already invested in Link and his sister and his grandma and what's going to happen. My sister got taken by a big bird. What does that even mean? And yeah, literally, like, Link's about to jump off a bridge to try and chase this bird that took his sister. And you're just like, okay, cool. I want to save my sister now. And I think that is why it wins my game of all time. Aside from the Triforce quest. They fixed it in the Wii U, but not nearly enough as they should have. Now, Cybream, it's a little bit sad, but that's it for Party Chat.
Indeed. It has been a pleasure working with you, Johnny. It's been a pleasure working with you, Raymond. It's been a pleasure entertaining you guys all out there who have stayed with us on this journey, watching every episode. We love and appreciate all of you guys. Johnny, you want to say anything to our loyal fan base?
Of course. I want to thank everybody for watching over the last few weeks. Like Cybream said, I want to, it's been a pleasure working with Cybream and Raymond, even though maybe Raymond will say something this recording. Maybe he'll edit in something he wants to say, because last recording he didn't say anything. Raymond, want to try again?
Skip it button, da-da.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Raymond. But yeah, all joking aside, thank you all for watching. It's been a pleasure working with you, Sabrine, you, Raymond. And gaming is such an important part of our lives. I think we've hopefully made that clear. So it's nice that we had a little bit of an outlet where we could talk about that, even if it was just for 10 weeks.
Indeed.
And
right.
Repeat that?
Nah, okay.
Okay. And for one final time, make sure to like, comment, and share the video with your friends. And we'll see you next time in whatever we do next.
Indeed. Little storybook entertainment. Signing out.
How was that?
Bye.
Oh.